Hey guys, welcome back to more family drama relationship stories. In this video, OP was abandoned by his foster parents, who then demand that he pays their mortgage years later. Let's dive right into the video. So basically, as soon as I was born, I was put up for adoption. Well, actually, I never found my forever home. It sounds like the perspective of a dog, right? Except I was not in and out of shelter. I was just in and out of foster homes until about 14. I was with this family for about 4 years until I was 18. They definitely were not the worst foster parents I ever had. At least that's what I convinced myself, but they were not the best either. My basic needs were met in the sense of going to school, being fed, clothed, bathed, with a roof over my head. But other than that, I cannot really say they did much for me. We were not particularly close, and after a few years, I started to wonder why they never officially adopted me. We'll get to that part though, don't worry. You know, I say that my foster parents during that time were not so bad, but when I look back, man, something strikes me. Actually, a lot of things. So as soon as I turned 16, I got a job, and I've always been pretty ambitious, so as soon as I could make some money, I did. I worked in a restaurant where I made pretty much half my pay in tips. I would hoard the money bills and coins in a jar for a few months and then deposit it into my bank. One day I went to deposit my tip money into my bank and I noticed the balance in my bank account was a lot lower than I anticipated it to be. I had not bought anything and I was fairly responsible with my age, money management included. Keep in mind that where I live, if you are under 18, you can only have a bank account if someone over 18 is also on the account. I suppose like a co-signer or something. My foster mom was on the account. You see where I'm going with this, right? Plus, I figured that if it was fraud or anything like that, the bank would let us know right away and stop the charge. Well, that obviously didn't happen, and I was missing $200. Now, apparently, my foster parents also had fostered a few other kids in the past. They did have a biological son named Benny. Benny was just 2 years older than me and a grade above me. They did seem to favor Benny over me, but Benny seemed to see through their BS and did not reciprocate the closeness. Anyway, the day after I noticed my $200 was missing, Benny came up to me and seemed very excited. "Mom gave me $200. This is so sick. I think I'm going to buy the new BlackBerry." Yes, the BlackBerry phone. Gosh, that shows my age. Anyways, a light bulb immediately went off in my head. Exactly $200, which was the exact amount I was missing. I looked at Benny and told him that I was missing $200 from my bank account. You know, the bank account I shared with our mom. Benny immediately gave me a look. I could tell he felt bad because, well, his mom basically stole from me to do something nice for him. He asked me if I said anything to mom and I responded that no, I did not say anything because between classes and work I had not seen her since the day prior. Benny said he would come with me to bring it up to her. Regardless, he was going to give me the money back. For reasons like that, I always had a lot of respect for Benny. Surprisingly, she admitted to it, but she gave a BS excuse. She said something about helping my foster dad with the bills because times were tough, but then he got more hours at work and she knew that Benny needed/wanted a new phone. When Benny argued back that he had his own job and it was not fair to steal from me, my foster mom immediately started playing the victim and blah blah blah, saying how the government only gives her so much money for me per month and it was hard to find work and more blah blah. Benny gave me my money back and apologized because our mom never did. Things just kept happening, and again, at the time I never thought it was that bad. You know, I had a roof over my head, I was being fed, and I was able to go to public school and maintain good grades. I knew other foster kids that did not have that luxury, so I started saving my tips in a jar, and when I noticed money missing from there too, I started to hide it in a gap between two wood slats in my bed frame. Sometimes I would come home and it looked like someone had gone through my room, so I actually bought some crappy little lock pad to put on the door. When my foster parents questioned me about it, I told them I did not like people in my room when I was not there. My foster mom immediately pulled the victim card again and told me that I was an ungrateful brat because she was just trying to clean my room for me while I was working and at school. Flash forward to my high school graduation. I was excited for this new chapter in life. You finally feel like you're not a kid anymore, except you grow up and realize everyone is still a kid and they just know how to be professional. So anyways, Benny was the only one that showed up for my high school graduation. It actually kind of hurt my feelings and left my heart filled with disappointment. I thought they would be proud of me for once or acknowledge my accomplishments. About a month later, my 18th birthday was coming up. I came home from work one day and both my foster parents were waiting waiting for me. "We need to talk," my foster father said. His tone seemed serious. "What's up? What's going on here?" I replied. "You're about to turn 18, which means that you're no longer profitable because I won't be getting a check for you every month. Since your birthday is in 2 weeks, you have 2 weeks to find a new family or somewhere else to live." I thought they were playing a prank on me. Sure, I wanted to leave eventually, but I had nowhere near enough money to live on my own already. Profitable? What in the hell are you talking about? Did you just bring me into the family so you could collect some money? I argued back. "Well, you know, it costs money to raise a kid or feed a family. Times are tough, and since we won't be getting that extra money every month, we just really cannot keep you here." My foster dad butted in. "Keep you here?" Like I was some sort of dog in a cage. I decided not to argue with them and immediately went to my room for the rest of the night. I started thinking about what I was gonna do. Hell, why even wait the 2 weeks if they didn't even want me there? So, with my determination and ambition, I decided to do some research and start making a plan. Within 3 days, I had found my biological sister. She was about 8 years older than me and actually only lived about 2 hours away. I was looking for my biological mom too and did not even know I had a sister, but ended up finding my sister first. I looked exactly like the younger version of my sister and had my mom's facial structure. They lived in a tiny house with 1 bathroom. My biological father passed away from cancer, so unfortunately I never got to meet him, but I heard wonderful things about him. Apparently my mom had gotten pregnant when she was 16 and she was forced to put me up for adoption by both her parents and my dad's parents. They were high school sweethearts and were together until he passed away. I was able to really connect with my bio mom and even moved in with her, explaining the situation. I then got a new restaurant job and tried to help pay house bills, rent, groceries, etc., but my bio mom would not let me whatsoever. She wanted me to save my money. Within about a year of moving in with my bio mom and sister, I decided to go to medical school and specialize in oncology. And yes, it does take a very long time in case you are wondering. I kept in touch with Benny and my foster parents apparently went looking for me after I left, but since I was over 18, there was nothing they could really do. Benny moved out shortly after and told me my foster mom had only adopted a worse victim mindset and was showing a lot of narcissistic tendencies again. And that my foster dad did not have the balls to stand up to his wife, so he just sat back and let it happen. Apparently, they had been struggling with money and had been for years, so I cannot say that I was all that surprised when they somehow found my contact info and messaged me out of the blue. They had emailed me and heard that I was in medical school and congratulated me, and they also said they were happy that I found my biological family. Well, I knew that was BS. After all, they probably thought because I was in medical school and pursuing an oncologist career that I was loaded with money. They left their contact phone number in the email, so I decided to call them. Foster mom: "Hello? Me, it's Travis. What do you want and why did you contact me?" Foster mom: "Oh Travis, we have missed you so much the last few years. We heard that you were in medical school and wanted to check in on you." "What do you really want? If you wanted to, you could have checked in on me a lot sooner." Foster mom: "Well, we'll all be honest with you, honey. We are struggling to pay bills. We heard that you still live in the same state. Would you like to come live with us and help pay the house bills and mortgage? You can have the master bedroom with the big bathroom this time." Me: "Oh, so you want to steal money from me again, just like when I was a teen?" Well, obviously no, I don't give a damn about your bills and I also don't give a damn about your master bedroom with a huge bathroom. I'm living a good life now and I don't want nor need you in it. Foster mom: "Wow, that's how you talk to us for all that we did for you? I always knew that you were such an ungrateful little crap. How dare you not help us pay off the mortgage?" Me: "All that you did for me? You did the bare minimum. I was never a family member, I was just a paycheck. Maybe if you actually got off your ass, you would be able to get a job and help contribute instead of stealing from people." And with that, I clicked the phone and hung up. Screw them and the audacity that they had to offer me a bigger bedroom to pay bills and a mortgage on a house I did not even own. I let Benny know what happened and he said they tried to lure him back in too, but he went no contact with them. I decided to go no contact as well, but I'm petty, so I had to get the last word in. A few days later, I met up with Benny for some coffee, we took a picture together and I sent it to my foster mom along with a text that said, "How does it feel that both your foster kid and bio kid want nothing to do with you? We are #living our best lives." And then I blocked her number immediately. I have not heard from them since, and if we are being honest, I don't care. I hope their house gets foreclosed on. I'm petty and a hater when needed. And yeah guys, I'm curious, do you think OP was the a-hole in this situation or not? Let me know what you think about the story, and while you're at it, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The next one is a malicious compliance story that is titled, I got crushed tonight, sold $3,000 in 5 hours. My last 2 tables both had raw food delivered to them, so naturally my manager blamed me. So I started at this new place a month ago and everything has been going great. It's the Canada Day long weekend here and I got totally sacked tonight. Everything was totally fine until near closing, when my last 2 tables each received raw food. Table 1 had raw chicken in their chicken burger and table 2 had raw ground beef in their sliders. It was so awkward. I got it rectified immediately and had it comped, but then my managers took a 180 and suddenly took care of each table's entire bill, which they didn't have to do. Both the tables felt really bad this happened for themselves, but also me for suffering without a tip. The raw chicken table gave me a $20 bill and the second one asked me to charge him 11 cents so he could tip me still. I thought that was super nice of them to do and were clear to both my managers that I didn't do anything wrong, it was the kitchen. When I went to leave, one manager came up to me and literally started the conversation with, I'm not saying you're a bad server, but yet continued to chastise me for these 2 issues that I literally couldn't do anything about. I tried to reiterate that to him, but his eyes kinda glanced over, so I just decided to end the conversation as I was already 2.5 hours in OT. I'm annoyed because I literally had 10 tables all night just cycling through, one after the other, no breather, and everything was fine. One table tipped me $150 on a $340 bill, they even requested me tomorrow, another did the same thing requesting me. Yet here I am at 12:30 AM getting told I'm not a bad server, but I'm gonna talk to him tomorrow about it because I'm genuinely kind of mad. I know how this crap happens to us, like, no, let's not acknowledge how none of my food got sent back prior to this and I had no issues, but let's just zero in on these 2 unfortunate things that happen to be in my section. Someone in the comments said, what were you supposed to do? Bite the hamburger to see if it was still raw? OP answered, yeah right, it's high-key bothering me, not gonna lie, like a bad server would not have brought it up whatsoever. Another person said, there's no way you could have known, he's just an idiot and instead of facing the kitchen he wants to say, I've dealt with it, by making it your problem. Another person said, your manager is either an a-hole, an idiot, or let the pressure get to them and owes you an apology. Depending on what type of person you are, you can either forget this and move on or ask them for more training to help you be a better server. When they agree, immediately ask them how to know if a meat is raw when you've had nothing to do with its cooking and have not cut into it. Update. Hey everyone, thanks for the responses. I honestly thought this would get largely overlooked, but I guess that didn't happen. So I appreciate so many people acknowledging this post and seeing how asinine this entire situation is. Here is a new update. So I talked to my coworkers and they all said to just not bother speaking to Perry, not his real name, close though, because he'll get defensive and might even go behind my back to our senior manager and twist the story since he's willing to try to gaslight me into thinking the raw food was my problem. Everyone was equally surprised this behavior happened from him, I was too, because we all never thought that he would stoop to that level and yet here we are. So I was going to speak to our main manager yesterday, but since it was Canada Day, it was very busy and everyone was stressed, so I decided to send an email briefly outlining the situation and ending it with, I'm just wondering if you could provide some feedback on the situation as I take these situations seriously too, and want to make sure that I'm doing the most to effectively handle the delivery of raw and undercooked food to guests. Thanks. I did not include the tipping thing because I thought it was unnecessary, as I wanted the focus to be on the raw food. I did however add that when the managers and I jointly spoke to the guests, both guests made sure to add, to be clear, we are not upset with her, she's doing great, we are upset with the raw food. I just sent it so hopefully it works out fine. This manager is very open to conversations and I doubt we'll just sweep it underneath the rug. I'll let you know what she says. Update number 2, so I sent my head manager an email that was very polite and sounded more like, hey, this thing happened. Perry implied I didn't do enough to deal with it, but I'm not sure what more I could have done other than comping the food, getting the chef to speak to them, offer free dessert, etc. So when Perry said I could have done more, I quite literally don't know what he meant by more, and he didn't either. We talked and as I explained, I think she slowly got the subtext. She was not upset with me, she said she would talk to him, but overall she said I think I did everything I could have done by alerting them, getting the chef to apologize, offering alternatives, etc. I hope he gets some sense knocked into him and realizes that he cannot just randomly pin crap on me, I'm not stupid. I'll take responsibility where I'm supposed to, but why would I literally absorb the blame for something I would not have ever been able to control the outcome of? This will probably cause minor friction for a while and cause him to be passive-aggressive, which he already exhibited the day after, but I didn't tolerate it and called him on it. I had a table ask for the bill, and when I had it, she said she wanted another round and then the bill, so I went to do that. In the midst of retrieving the new one, someone asked me a question, took 10 seconds to answer, yet when I turn around she's holding the old bill with a merchant copy, notably the version without the extra drinks. So he basically just gave 2 drinks away for free doing that. I told him I appreciated him trying to help, but now you've created more work for yourself. Now you gotta awkwardly ask them to pay for them separately or refund them and give them an amalgamated version. Either way, this technically could have been avoided if you just asked me first. I then told him to figure out what he wanted to do and then walked away. Basically didn't talk to him the rest of the night. Anyway, thanks for the responses. I felt less gaslit after posting here. Another email. I just got an email that I got a 5-star review from someone else and it was great. He got CC'd. Take that, Perry, you a-hole. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I have lived in this quiet corner of the world for nearly 10 years, during which time I was lucky enough to start a family with my wife by having a son. I was happy and I couldn't see how life could get any better. I was right about this. What I didn't consider though was how much worse life could get as well. The elderly neighbors were finalizing the sale on their home after reluctantly joining a retirement home. While we were sad to see them go, I was internally quite excited at the opportunity to meet another family to be friends with. Instead, on the official moving day, I was met by a man that appeared to be in his early 40s. He wore a sweaty tank top that I assumed was once white and enough body odor to put a skunk to shame, though the smell could have also been the heavy stench of alcohol on his breath. The man vaguely introduced himself but kept busy with his moving boxes. I offered to help, but he immediately turned me down. I was still in the yard when he was unloading his heavier furniture, still alone, and since he began, other neighbors had come to say hello, but in the same dismissive manner he had largely ignored them as well. So much for being a good neighbor, I thought. A few evenings later, my family and I were hanging out in the backyard when my son launched a beach ball out of the pool, sending it tumbling over to the neighbor's property. I calmly walked over to get it when I felt a sharp stinging pain in my foot, finding a slow stream of red below me. I realized too late why walking barefoot around the trash of an alcoholic could be dumb as I gazed at the shard of glass sticking out from me. Ignoring the ball, I returned home and my wife treated my wound. Noticing my son slowly waddling to the neighbor's yard, I dashed back outside to intervene, coming face to face with the new guy himself. As we spoke, he seemed more annoyed at my minor intrusion than the fact that his broken beer bottles had cut me and could have easily injured my son or others. It was my first conversation with the man to last for longer than 10 seconds, but it was not one I was eager to repeat. At the end of our heated exchange of words, we somehow agreed that a fence would be better for us both, with him eager to keep me out while I was eager to keep my family uninjured. After missing my alarm, I left for work late the next morning. Pulling out of the driveway, I lurched abruptly, narrowly missing a truck that was parking on the curb outside my lousy neighbor's place. As I pulled out into the street, I noticed the Arlington Construction and Repair Company logo on the truck as 2 workmen stepped out, giving me equally unhappy looks. When I returned home in the early evening, I had to swerve as I was late to notice some big metal structure on my driveway. Though the light was fading, it was still clear enough to see the barbed wire fencing that now separated my house from my neighbor. The only problem being, it also cut me off from a huge part of my own driveway and front yard. I squeezed around the side of the house to find it continued even to my backyard, with my pool now secured on the wrong side of the fence for me. My neighbor had waited for our absence to piss us off and steal my property at the same time. He answered the door on the 6th heavy knock as I hit my swollen hand behind my back. As typical, he answered with a beer in hand and a mood that suggested it was not his first. As I explained the issue, he told me in sheer confidence and smugness that his deeds said that the land was his, so he took it back, plain and simple. I demanded to see the deeds, stepping closer to him and edging into the house. At this point, his mood turned sour and aggressive, pushing me back onto the driveway. Treating me like I was somehow the bad guy here, he said that he rightfully owned half my property and I had stolen the land from the elderly couple before him. I was dumbstruck by the accusation as he continued to rip into me. According to a credible source of his, the property markers during the initial build were set wrong, which left my house with more space than his, though he was not keen to divulge this very credible and intelligent source of his. To answer his so-called facts, I asked again for his proof. He shut the door after saying that he would send me a copy in the morning, ignoring the rest of my shouts. Despite his slurred promise, a few days passed before I saw him again, except it was not to give me his supposed proof. He was instead taking full opportunity of the sunshine to lounge in the pool, my pool. I called out to him as I stood by the fence, though from his sunglasses he looked like he may be asleep, though a beer bottle was floating loosely in one hand. With no sign of him moving, I move around the fence to stand over him, my shadow blocking his tanning process. He finally seemed to notice me. Startled by my sudden appearance, he tipped over and fell in. I waited as he swam to the side and dragged his sad, soggy self out of the water. He was furious at the disturbance, as if being in a pool would not usually make you wet. When I pressed him for proof again, he ignored me and told me to go back to my property. I refused because this was my property, but he refused to accept it. Just before we came to blows, he backed off, leaving me at the poolside as he stormed back to his house. A strange but satisfying win. So I sat at the poolside with my son and wife after seemingly winning back the rights to our yard, though that victory was short-lived when I saw a cop walk around the house towards me, followed by the neighbor. Though I argued my hardest there was little the cop could do in my defense because I was on the wrong side of the fence. I must have been trespassing. My neighbor could not hide their joy as I was cuffed and led to the cop car while my family watched on in horror. Of course, my wife came as soon as she could to grant my bail, but that did little to help the hurt to my self-esteem at this point after being dragged through the motions like a common criminal. A few hours later, I came home to find someone else who was celebrating a victory. My neighbor was hosting a pool party and invited everyone he knew. Despite my best efforts, I could do little to shut up the noise, which persisted long into the next morning. Seeing the state of the garden when it was finally over crushed my spirit further. The mess and damage was unbelievable. The law may be of little help to me in sorting this out, but that did not mean that I had to give up entirely. My wife reminded me that our realtor had contact with a local house surveyor, and after booking an appointment online, I gathered every legal document I had and left for their offices. They were more supportive than I expected, though I had only the earlier cop to compare my situation to. After leaving the case with them for a few days, I sat at the phone waiting to book our next appointment. Luckily, I did not have to wait long, and it was much better news than I expected. The surveyor was able to find a copy of the deeds from City Hall, proving the property borders very clearly. I still don't know what kind of proof the neighbor thought he had, but I had no reason to play nice anymore. Maybe I was a little too excited when I approached my neighbor later that afternoon, practically inviting a challenge as I stepped around the fence to meet him at the pool, much to his open shock. I kept my cool though through the argument, which only seemed to tick him off even more. He threatened me with calling the cops back, a threat I met with a smile. The same cop returned to the yard some 20 minutes later, sighing quietly at the sight of us again. The cop was just as confused by my blatant confidence in breaking the same law 2 days in a row, but I now had the proof and legal backing to give a good protest. Showing my trump card forced my neighbor into finally retrieving his copy of the deeds, though he looked very uneasy about it. As the cop returned to his car for a moment, the neighbor lunged at me trying to knock me into the pool, but he failed miserably and only sent himself in for another dip. When the cop returned, the neighbor had the audacity to claim that I assaulted him, though he was the only one at the time being aggressive and demanding. When I mentioned that the cop should maybe try a breathalyzer, his mood got even worse and he openly tried to swing at me, all but sealing his fate. So I tore the fence down as soon as I saw the cop car turn the corner. I was confident that I had little to worry about anymore. And it turned out that I was right. The neighbor's deed was deemed a forgery after some forensic testing later, and to add insult to injury, he could now add assault and resisting arrest to his police file. I saw the neighbor come home late in the evening. We locked eyes briefly, but he never mentioned the missing fence ever again. Of course, I also pressed charges on this dangerous idiot of a neighbor, and he ended up behind bars later, which is exactly where he belonged. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.